So hello and welcome to this video on the WORNG Electronics LRMSMSLR, or left right mid side left right. Make sure you've got some headphones on. Speakers are good, but headphones preferably, so you can hear this mid side processing. And let's check out some patches before getting into the video. Now the LRMSMSLR is a mid-side decoding module. It takes a stereo input at the left, right at the top. It sums these together to create the mid signal, which if we think about what a mono signal would be, the mid signal, it kind of makes sense. The same sound in the left and the right is a mono signal, just played across a stereo system, speakers, headphones, whatever that is. So the mid is the sum of the left and the right. The side is the difference. It takes these away from each other, and it's to do with phase relationships. We then get a mid input. So we could take the output, process the mid, bring it back. We get a side input, so we can take the side out, process it and bring it back. And it gives us a left-right stereo signal again. Now there's some normaling. The mid output goes to the input and so does the side. So if you just want to process the side or just the mid, you can. The manual's great with lots of patch examples showing us how we can do things like high pass filter out low end in the stereo signal, which is really common studio mastering technique. We can use that to enhance the stereo width. We can use VCAs on the side signal to make this stereo width bloom. It sounds great in headphones. We can stereo filter without having identical filters, which normally would sound kind of lopsided and not quite right if we had a polyvox filter on one side and a ladder filter on the other, but it works great with this mid and side function. We can use a single reverb module and take mono signals in, sum these together out of the mid output, process that through a reverb or any other effect, bring it back to the side input and create this super wide reverb from single mono modules. We can do that over stereo signals where we just add with a single mono effect, add that to the side signal. So it's now a stereo effect over the side information. We can do some stereo sideband creation using VCAs or ring modulators. We can unity mix, we can CV average, we can create CV differences, and there's some complex CV in the manual as well. All those graphics are from the manual. I've got lots of different patches, although I can't go through every single use of this thing, and I'm sure there's a lot of other creative uses that aren't shown in this video as well. There is a timing index below, going through what these patches are, what they do. Use that, skip around the video, and let's get stuck in. It's a really creative tool. So this patch is two analog oscillators, detuned from each other. We can see that on the Mordax data scope, where the green trace is one oscillator, the blue is the other, and this shift in the wave is showing us this detune amount, slightly different rates. These are taken into the left input for one oscillator and the right for the other. So entirely hard panned left and right, one oscillator to one side, one to the other. And then taking the mid outputs into the first channel of this VCA, so I can level control it and show you the differences in the level between mid and side. I'm taking the side output into channel 2 on this VCA, and for the minute we're just coming back. So here's the mid signal. If I just simply turn it up without going into this VCA, it would just pass through the module. And the mid signal is the sum of both of those inputs, as if we mono collapse a left and right signal down into one channel. This is the side. Now the side, because of how this works in terms of decoding these phases to recreate a stereo signal, it doesn't sound stereo until we turn the mid back up. So I'll turn up the first VCA, bring in that mid channel, and we'll hear this in stereo. It goes without saying, put some headphones on. Speakers work obviously, but headphones for this demo specifically is going to really show off this mid-side processing and the stereo that I'm recording. So fading up that mid signal then shows us, because of the phase differences, this stereo signal. It boosts up that stereo width. Likewise, that's just the mid, and then I can turn up the side channel. Now the beauty of having them separately and mono, because it is a single mid channel and a single side channel, that's how mid-side works, we can process these differently. So let's take the side into this phaser, and we'll come out of the phaser back into the VCA. So here's the mid signal, and I'm going to bring in the phaser processed side signal, which you'll hear come up in stereo. It's going to feel like it's swirling around your head if you've got headphones on. And it's a great way to get mono effects like this phaser or Echophon or tube distortion, all of which we're going to look at in a minute, and make it feel like a stereo processor. It's important to note it isn't stereo, it's processing the side, the difference between the two channels, not independently processing a left and a right. But the effect's kind of the same. This sounds like a stereo phaser. Let's try the Echophon. And the Echophon's pitch shifted. So again, here's the mid, and here's the now Echophon pitch shifted side. And as I fade that dry wet on the Echophon, it feels like the sides are pitch shifting while the mid stays still, which is exactly what's happening, but it's quite a unique effect. So let's take the mid signal this time and distort that. So we're going to go the other way this time. Here's the side signal, simply in the VCA for level control. Again, feels like mono because there's no mid signal to work against. And we're now going to have a tube driven through this Metasonix module mid signal. So notice up the middle, right in between your ears or between your speakers, this distorted sound's going to come in, and also the sides are going to push out when this has something to work against. It's a big, rich sound. Let's try phasing that side signal again. So here's my distorted mid, and here's my fade shifted side. And these left and right outputs are going into my mixer and being recorded. And another great sounding stereo trick is to take the side signal into a reverb. And again, if this is a mono reverb, it's going to make it feel like it's stereo. It's almost like a 2-for-1 on any mono effects you've got. So here's the mid signal, completely dry, just level controlled by the VCA again. And here's this AJH Synth Finaliser R-EQ. Side into that, back into the VCA just for level control. And let's send a sequence out to these oscillators. It's a great sound, and it's a sound design tool that you can really push in quite creative ways. So let's get into some other patches to show this off. So with the same patch setup, I wanted to share this stereo ring modulation effect, which I think is a bit of a personal favourite of Morgan's from WORNG Electronics. He's given us this demo at Super Booth a couple of times and it sounds fantastic. So this is still 2 detuned oscillators, which are now this top green and blue trace, which are coming in left and right as they were. The mid is simply going into this VCA for level control. and the mid is the sum of those two signals. The side output is going into a ring modulator. Now it's going into a ring modulator rather than a VCA that I will modulate, simply because we can then get the negative shift in a 4-quadrant multiplier. A VCA would modulate its positive gain, and then when the negative value of a bipolar source, which is what I'm going to modulate this with, it's not going to do anything. A VCA doesn't go to minus values. It's either off or the gain is up. A ring modulator works in positive and negative domains. So what this allows us to do is actually flip the stereo phase. It's not just a case of bringing up the side signal, we can flip it in the ring modulator. So all that babble aside, let's hear it. This is a side signal on its own. It will feel like mono because it's not against the mid. And I've got it ring modulated against another oscillator. So the side signal is this. And here's a ring mod. I can sweep down my source that's modulating this. And we put this against the mid. So we have this ring modulated side that is increasing and decreasing in gain with this triangle way of modulating the ring mod, but it's also flipping the stereo image. So my input waves are sequenced. I'm also sequencing the modulator on the ring mod. It's great for just creating a huge sound. The beauty of the Ring SM is it's got sub generators, so let's add a -1 sub to the side signal. So it's great at getting this audio rate control of the stereo image, flipping that signal, increasing the side signal. It's a really cool patch. So there's no processing now. Mid signal here, just for level. Side signal here. We can just simply modulate a VCA to control the stereo width. Really simple. Let's take a looping envelope into this VCA, controlling the level of the side signal. And it's modulating stereo width. Again, get headphones on. You can hear this sound blooming out into both sides of your head or into each ear. Again, a fantastic tool, and one that's not really available to do this kind of thing easily. So at this point, I thought it was a good idea to show you a few different sound sources so we can get our head around this mid-side idea. I've got stereo signals coming in, and I'm going to change what these are throughout. Mid out into channel 1 of this VCA again, side out into channel 2, the bottom controls, coming back in, coded back into left and right, and that's what's been recorded. Now, here's the mid and the side, just turning up these VCA channels. Bit of a cheesy synth riff, but just to show you what's going on, here's the mid on its own. And listen to the side, it allows us to pull out the stereo information, just the effects in this case, pretty much. Which, as I said, sound mono because they don't have the mid signal to work against with these phase relationships. When I bring the mid back up, you'll hear this push out in stereo to the speakers or headphones. I recommend headphones, as I've said a couple of times. Now again, because they're separate, We could just take these stereo effects and process them, let's say through the Echophon, and then bring that back in. And if I freeze the Echophon, the delay I'm using, all this all these sounds are in stereo. All the processing is just on the side. Let's check out a different sound, taking our signal back into the VCA. So here's a stereo piano signal. Again, mid and side is turned up. Here's the mid information. Here's what's on the sides. Together. And a couple of artifacts in the actual recording that we're listening to. Let's process just the side. Let's say through this phaser that I was using earlier on. It allows us to get stereo phasing over the side signal, the difference between the left and the right input. Again, let's move on to a different sound. So here's a stereo drum track. There's some reverb, some processing, just from a contact library that I've programmed up. There's the mid information. And here's the side. And the side's mainly the wet signal. So actually, just using the left-right, mid-side, left-right, we can turn down the side and cut out this reverb around the drum track, which is super useful in lots of situations and really easy to do with a module and a couple of level controls. Again, let's have some faded side signal. Let's try the Echophon, the pitch shifting delay. And let's try one more modern kind of dubstep bass sound. So here's the bass sound, mid and side turned up full. Here's the mid. And again, it kind of kills the effects like it did on the drums. And that's the side signal. Lots of noise and grit in this one already. Again, just for a couple of examples, let's take the side signal out into a big reverb. Turning up the wet on the reverb. Just a couple of examples to show what's going on with different stereo audio sources at the input. So here I'm using the module for two different patches. Now the top one, the left and the right input, and the mid output, which is top trace on data, we can just use as a unity mixer, because a left and a right input to create the mid, the mono element of a stereo signal, will be summed. If you patch one mono signal out to stereo speakers, it comes out of both evenly. It's just a sum of the thing. So to create the mid, summing the left and right, as it has been all the way through the video, just works as a unity mixer. My left input is a bass drum. My right input is a bit more percussion. That's coming out of the mid output, and that's what we're listening to. So left in, right in, mid output, we can treat that like an A and a B summer. Sum two signals, one output. Now the second patch, completely unrelated to the top. In fact, let's just pull it out to kind of prove that point. I'm taking the mid and the side inputs and taking the left output. And this is going to work as a CV averager. I've got two different signals coming into the mid and the side. And again, if I just take the mid input and the left out, the mid would sum to both the left and the right outs. Here that is modulating a wavetable. Simple enough. Now the side, and because it's the mid minus the sides, it's the way the phase relationship works. It's going to be a CV averager. Here's the other signal though. So here's both together. And you can see it creates an average of the two CV signals. It doesn't sum them together. So, Unity Mixer, CV averager, a couple of kind of bonus uses of this decoding mid-side system that is the left-right, mid-side, left-right module. So for this patch I have the same exact sound taken to two VCAs, one of which is panned hard left, one of which is panned hard right. Nothing to do with the module, just to let you know that the sound is in stereo and we're going to be modulating it with two different signals on the left and the right. I'm summing two CV signals. These are LFOs, one into the left input, one into the right. And as we saw with audio, taking the mid out, the sum of the left and right, this will just mix them together. And here that signal mixed together, the sum of the two CVs, is controlling the VCA with my sound panned left. And you can hear these two overlapping LFOs. The side output is the difference between the left and the right inputs. It doesn't sum, it's one take away the other. So here that is controlling a VCA on the right side of the stereo image. And here they are playing against each other. So the mid output, the sum of the CVs controlling left, and the difference, the side output, controlling the right. It's an interesting way to get these different but related rhythms working across a stereo field. You could just patch these out, because these are just CVs straight out, the sum CV and the difference, anywhere, but I've chose to take them out to control VCAs, controlling sound in a stereo field. So for this final patch, we're going to take a stereo signal into the left-right, mid-side, left-right, and use the mid output into one filter, which is this Steiner VCF from Manhattan Analog, and we're going to take the side output over to the Humpback from God's Box. Now, what we can do with the module is have two independent stereo chains going on, but use two different filters and make it sound like it's one stereo filter because of how this mid-side processing works. Now, the left side is an octave higher than my right side. I'm taking the two outputs from the graphic VCO to the left and the right, but it sounds like one merged thing. And if I just kill the modulation of these filters, here's my mid signal, the sum of both of them. Here's the side, which will fill out and sound like stereo when I put that mid back in. This is also going out into some reverb in the background, which is a bit irrelevant for the patch, but it's there. Now, if I modulate these filters with different envelopes or LFOs, it's still going to sound like one big moving stereo thing. So I have two looping envelopes from Rampage. Let's get rid of the side signal. Turn down the filter on the mid and turn up its modulation. Let's bring up the filter a bit on the side and turn up its modulation. So we've got this really unique situation where two sounds, a left signal and a right that are an octave apart, go into two different filters, the mid into one, the side into another, Both filters modulated separately, brought back into the mid-side inputs, and the stereo left-right is what's coming out and being recorded. But it feels like one big moving thing. It doesn't sound like two separate stereo things. And the way these filters are interacting is playing around with this sense of stereo width as well. It's really cool. Again, I hope you've been listening in headphones to get the full effect of this, or between some decent speakers. Hit like, subscribe, leave a comment, it'd be great to chat about this. Really impressed with this module. I'll be taking a look at vector space that's been right next to it in another video soon. Anything else related that's been used in the video will be linked below, including the website and the manual, which has some great examples. Some of the graphics I've overlaid have been from the manual. Go support me on Patreon if you'd like early access to content and exclusive content for people that support over there. Get your mum and dog to come and like the page, as someone said, the kind of big patter at the end. Like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, all the usual stuff. Cheers for watching.